Welcome, everyone. Hail to my fellow Selvan citizens. I am the prophet of Pagulane. Come, join me by the fire. Sit a while and hear a thrilling and dramatic tale like no other. Walk the path with me amongst the gods of old in each chapter of Book 1, Fall of Immortals. Chapter 20, The Flying Sun. Bubbles boiled to the surface of variable chemicals within Xanatos' laboratory. Ingredients from different plants and organisms, both alive and dead, were lined up across the shelves in the Grand Inquisitor's chamber. It was a well-organized space. His personal library was arranged in the shape of an arrow, divided by a reading pedestal at its tip. The beautiful light of morning shined upon it as if it was a testament to the divinity of knowledge. Several feet behind the pedestal, standing between it and a long iron table covered in books and scientific instruments, was a ruby-red titan egg. Xanatos enclosed it within a magical circle, outlined in fire, and it sat on top of a tall cup stand. At this moment, Xanatos was spending his time as he often preferred, reading tomes and books, ever expanding his knowledge, which hungered with an insatiable appetite. Although his hobby was somewhat obsessive, the religare did not allow it to interfere with his duties, which have broadened illustriously. He was now responsible for the scientific advancement and cultural progress of the Selvan Empire. Essentially, the more he learned, the further his capabilities of service. Though his latest endeavor required extravagant assistance, his solitude was interrupted by several knocks on the door, and with a wave of his hand, Xanatos bid the door to open slowly. He then turned and bowed to the entering presence. "My king," he greeted. "Grand Inquisitor, I see you have settled in nicely to your new accommodations," Zaldan replied as he entered the room. "Yes, my king. It is more than adequate for my needs," Xanatos responded. "I am pleased to hear it. Your disciple told me that you requested an urgent audience with me. I take it that you have made progress with the egg you found in the vault?" he asked. "You would be correct, my king. Not only that, but I have also detected something peculiar," Xanatos responded with excitement at his discovery. Zaldan was wearing an alteration of the king's traditional tunic, tailored to his personal liking and in the style to which he was accustomed. The tailor followed his previous style of clothing and armor, leaving the left arm sleeveless and also adding a gold sash to wrap around his waist. Appearances and tradition are important pillars to ruling. However, no matter the case, Zaldan always ensured he was never hindered in case of sudden combat. "If you would, brother, lay your hand on the egg and describe what you feel," he continued as they stepped over the shallow flames and into the Mana circle. Zaldan responded with a curious glance, though with intrigue. He did as requested, and slowly placed his hand on the egg. Shortly after, Zaldan began to feel a sensation, like a faint heartbeat, barely alive. "The egg has a life force," Zaldan said. "Exactly, sire. This egg has somehow managed to stay somewhat alive throughout the years, though it remains in a dormant state," Xanatos replied. "So how then do we bring the egg out of dormancy?" Zaldan asked. Xanatos quickly responded with, "By reigniting the life within. Though it will take more than a spark to accomplish the task. Normal flames are ineffective, and my pyro magic does not have enough intensity to reach its core. Which is why..." He paused. which is why you called me. You want me to feed it with the corrupted flames of virtue. Interesting. Let us see what it yields, the walking responded. The color in Zaldan's eyes began to shift. His irises filled with a sapphire blue, and the flames in the arcane circle converted, as if now under his command too. Blue flames started to envelop Zaldan's body as he released more mana. With concentration, he began pulsing heat into the egg, filling it with new, hot, and intense energy. As he focused, the once ruby egg changed its color and began to expand. In moments, the egg's weight snapped the narrow stand holding it in place. The more the egg grew, it transitioned from ruby red to as blue as the afternoon sky while it slowly descended to the floor. More, brother, more power, Xanatos cried out. It was a wise precaution to enchant the circle to not let any flames escape the boundary, or else the heat might have devoured his laboratory. Without relenting, Zaldan's burning will poured into the egg until its expansion ceased. Once the size of a fist, now the size of a watermelon, the egg quaked with life. Zaldan then removed his hand from the egg. It glowed from within, shaking as it started to form cracks along its surface. It is about to hatch, Xanatos uttered. He and Zaldan proudly looked on as a new existence was resurrected into the world. Embers and steam seeped out from the cracks as pieces of the egg shell began to crumble to the floor. A baby dragon emerged from within the jeweled egg, unique as its breeding and of a singular kind. This dragon wore scales as well as feathers. Its scales shifted iridescently between scarlet and cerulean. Its cobalt irises glowed, segregating the black pupils and coronaries of its eyes. The creature appeared to be a hybrid of an amphitheater dragon and a phoenix. Instead of a reptilian snout and hand wings, it possessed a fanged beak and feathered elliptical wings with claws at its bends. The primary and secondary feathers of the dragon's wings alternated the color of its scales down each layer of the wing. Curved slate horns and finned ears framed the dragon's head, while maroon fur led from between its horns down the spine and to the end of its tail. Newly born, yet, it quickly learned how to stand upright on its scaled hind legs, using its tail to balance while lifting its small arms as it cried out in its tiny roars, "I am here." What an exquisite and magnificent creature. Sire, what are you going to name him? Xanatos marveled. Zaldan knelt down to pet their new companion. You will be as the sun, glaring as you saw over my dominion. Henceforth, your name will be Lendav Pike, Zaldan declared with pride. The young dragon coiled its way around Zaldan's arm to nestle on his shoulder, calling out with a newborn's cry. A fine name, Mikey. When this little one becomes too large to remain in the castle, it can remain in the new vault we are constructing near the palace. I will make some adjustments to the architecture in anticipation of Pike's growth and needs, Xanatos suggested. An initiate of the Inquisition brought an urgent report for his mentor and King Zaldan. Sire, Lord Inquisitor, I come bearing a disturbing report from the construction site, the initiate cried out. The mood changed as the merry moment made room for displeasing news. Speak, initiate, Xanatos permitted. Brigands attacked the site where the new vault was being built. They used maces and hammers to damage the foundation and stole most of the materials needed to repair and continue building. They also killed the constables who were posted in the area and used their blood to deface part of the structure with a message. The message was for you, Your Majesty. what did it say? Zaldin asked. The initiate hesitated slightly, swallowing his fear of the impending reaction as he repeated the words. Usurper, Selva will not yield so easily. The true heir lives on. The king's jaw clenched, and his eyes began to glow with anger. Rebels, Zaldin scoffed. Summon the legionnaires to the war room, Zaldin commanded, briskly pacing to design an adequate response to this offensive challenge to his rule. Right away, sire, Xanthos responded as he bowed his head. The League of Pagulane later assembled within the war room to address the pressing matter. The war king sat at the head of the war table. Xanthos sat to his right, and Zara on his left. War Master Magnus sat on the opposing end, and the remaining filled the middle. The Zenobis sat on the left side of the table, facing the generals arranged on the right. The knights outside closed off the room as Leonidas took the final seat, marking all members present. I have called this meeting because we have loyalists of the old regime still walking the halls of this palace. This shall not be tolerated, bellowed the war king as he slammed his fist on the table. The reports describe them as brigands. At the very least, they are rebels, General Odysseus added. What leads you to believe that nobles will be behind this? He asked, respectfully. He is right, Your Majesty. Rebellions and uprisings can originate from multiple sources, uttered General Leonidas. The dissatisfaction or oppression of the citizens and corrupt or tyrannical rule, neither of which has been the case. From our first victory against the Goths, I have garnered the favor of the Selvans and the infantry. When they all think of their prosperity, it is my name that sounds in their minds, Zaldin replied. Leonidas may be onto something, sire. There will always be a minority that you cannot satisfy, those that will only be pleased with your throat beneath their heel, stated the War Master. Hence the nobility, Odysseus sneered. Exactly. This is not my first round inside a royal court. They are typically all the same. Self-serving, narcissistic, greedy, and either lazy or incompetent. I will have different. What I will build here will be an everlasting dynasty.